Well, joining us now is Colonel Brendan Kearney, who has been to Ukraine, worked with NATO, serving as Chief of Staff in the Marines in Europe. So, Colonel, what is your initial reaction to what happened in the Oval Office between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy?
Well, it was quite a lesson in diplomatic sausage making, Ryan, and I think it's probably good for the American people to see this. It was an education. I mean, if you're into body language, that alone was well worth watching, and to see the president, J.D. Vance, and Zelensky really going at it was quite interesting. Not something we normally get to see.
It was definitely theater, but from a diplomatic standpoint, how do you think other countries and world leaders are now viewing what happened today, especially one Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think Putin is having a good day, and he's probably celebrating in the Kremlin with a nice vodka. Uh, but I think for most of Europe and for most of the world leadership, particularly those that have supported Ukraine, those that have been around for a while are going to look at this as a dust up. And these types of dust ups not only happen between friends and marriages and all those type of things, but they happen on a diplomatic scale in the friendship between nations. And I think in the long run, this is going to get worked out. But it certainly was a show to watch.
So let's break this down. The war between Russia and Ukraine, that's been going on for a little more than 3 years now. How do we get to this point? And after today's exchange, how are things likely to unfold? And can Ukraine continue to defend itself without the help of the U.S.?
I'll answer the first part of your questions first. Yes, Ukraine can continue to defend itself without the U.S. However, for how long would be the real question mark. In terms of how did we get to this, it's pretty, President Trump was clear in his election campaign as to where he wanted to see Ukraine go and his efforts at trying to bring about a peace. And he certainly has made that. It's absolutely clear that he's doing, I think, the best that anybody could reasonably expect for a U.S. president to dance between maintaining relationships with Ukraine and at the same time rebuilding what has been a completely fractured relationship with Russia. And so far, that's where it's gotten us to today. And we'll have to see if we can go ahead and get this economic relationship, this deal, so to speak, in place, and then see if the president can act as an honest broker between Russia and Ukraine in getting them to the peace table and a cessation of hostilities.
Are you confident that a ceasefire or a peace agreement can still come after all this?
Yes, I am. I think it may take a couple days for all the dust to settle. Uh, and I'm sure there are conversations going on in Washington, D.C. right now and in Kiev uh, as we speak that, between the embassy in Washington, D.C. and the White House, and also with emails and Zooms and everything else going back and forth between the Ukrainian embassy and home station. They're all talking. They're going to try to figure out how to turn this thing around and make some good come out of it over the next couple of days before Zelensky leaves. And if not, it'll take a little bit longer than that.
I'm curious. I'm sure you've been behind some of these big closed door meetings and big closed door negotiations. Is this something that happens behind closed doors that we normally don't see? And maybe that's why it's a little shocking for us because we got to see it play out in front of us.
It does happen behind closed doors, and in the doors I was behind, oftentimes some of the most vigorous arguments and hurt feelings occurred between just the U.S. side alone, between DOD to the Department of State, the National Security Council. We'd come to a great deal of agreement after some strenuous arguments, and then we'd go in to see the countries that we were dealing with at that time. My primary concern in those days was not only Europe, but also Asia. So this goes on. But again, that's why I mentioned right up front. I think it's good for the American people to see this. It's not all tea and crumpets like the diplomatic world is oftentimes made out to be. It gets rough, and it got rough in there today. And I'm a little surprised, quite honestly, Ryan, that it was allowed to go on as long as it did. I would have thought some of the press folks, the White House interlocutors, would have ceased that so that some of this dirty linen did not get aired in front of the media.
All right. Well, Colonel Brendan Kearney, thank you very much always for your insight and your knowledge. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Ryan. Talk soon.